with some statistics showing that nearly 80% of kids walk away from their faith by the age 18. My guest today asks the question, if you could give your child the perfect gift, wouldn't it be a legacy of faith? LEANNE CABRAL is a mother, author, speaker, and coach, and her own personal journey of figuring out how best to leave that gift of faith to her children got her started on a journey, and she's here to tell us about it. Welcome, LEANNE.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
This has been a great book. As I said to you, I think it's the perfect season for me as I think we're all as parents trying to think of ways that we can intentionally pour into our children. Yeah. But then, as they get older, you're like, I need to get a little more serious about this. I need to think day to day what I can do. And you start off your journey saying that you had to kind of assess your own situation.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
Yeah, well, there was a lot going on. I think, as parents, we desperately want our kids to walk with faith, right? But there's so much going on. I mean, whether it be a new baby, new jobs, moving, there's all these things that happen. And we're kind of working through just kind of that survival mode. I just forgot to leave survival mode, right? And it wasn't until my daughter turned 9 that I suddenly realized, oh my goodness, I've spent your first 9 years, having 3 other kids and nursing, and it's time to do something on purpose because you could leave in another 9 years.
Yeah. You say that, sometimes we compare ourselves to people. Social media, we kind of,
oh my goodness.
Social media can kind of do so much damage, right?
Yeah.
We're looking at everybody's great pictures and everything and comparing ourselves to that.
Right, well, because we compare like our behind the scene life to everybody else's highlight reel, right? So our worst moments to their best, and it's tough because it always looks easier from somebody else's perspective, right? As you're watching them. I remember my neighbor getting her kids into the car, like everybody was smiling and they were kind and there was never any yelling. Not so at my house, right? So it makes you feel bad. Like, what are we doing wrong? Yeah. Right?
So as you did this self-analysis, you talk about negative self-talk, which is also another big thing that I think all of us do. What did you find about yourself? What did you want to change as you went on this road of giving your children the best gift?
Right. So the problem was I didn't realize I had a warped view of myself or a warped view of God. Because the problem with the warped view is it's truth to you. Otherwise you would have changed it.
Right.
Right? So, I knew that God loved me. That was never the question, but I always felt like he was just kind of slightly disappointed in me, that I just wasn't quite measuring up. And so combine that with my own negative self-talk and just the perspective I had of myself, and it was noisy in my head. I mean, I can remember getting dressed and you just hear that non-stop chatter, what makes you think you're a good mom? What are the chances your kids will walk in faith if you're their example? And it was a little relentless, quite honestly. And it wasn't until somebody else began to point that out to me that actually that's not who God is. That you begin to kind of evaluate things, and actually even then it didn't change. I remember one morning I was doing my devotions, and when your kids are little, like you survive on snack size, right? Like these little bites that you can get. And I had stumbled across, a verse in Isaiah where it says, that he carries the lambs close to his heart and he gently leads those with young. And that changed everything for me because that was me, right? And I began to understand that he's not mad that I can't keep up. He doesn't have these huge, this list of disappointing things that I've done. Actually, it's kind of like when your kids learn how to walk, right? You celebrate each step. You fully expect them to fall down, so you help them back up and you cheer them along again. And that slowly was kind of that first step in unraveling that warped view of him and that warped view of myself.
And you say that God spoke to you and said something to you. What did he say?
No, I don't remember.
He said, LEANNE, the only thing I hold you responsible for.
You're right. Yeah. Is how. Yeah, that's true. That was a different time, but that's true. That was kind of the morning when everything kind of fell apart.
Yeah.
And I just dropped off kids to daycare for someone to look after them, and they were all either sick, and I needed to be home, but I had to teach a class. And I remember kind of in the car, just lamenting with the Lord, like, what is going on? Like, this is crazy. This is not how I want to live my life. And it was really just this picture of, LEANNE, look at what's all on your plate. You've chosen to put all these things on there. The only thing I will hold you accountable for is the atmosphere you create in your home and how you interact with your children, that you point them to me. Wow. And that changed everything.
It changed everything. You quit your job.
Right, yeah, because that's what I felt the Lord was asking me to do.
Yeah.
That was, I had my own business that I was running with 3 small kids.
And so you said, I'm going to invest And what did that look like for you as you delved into this? Were you like, God, I don't understand. How do I do this?
Right. So yeah, I closed down, a business that was doing very, very well. And I didn't quit completely. I was still teaching for somebody else out of their studio, but it was much more in my terms and the kind of time that I wanted to invest into that. And so for me, it just began researching and trying to understand, like, what are other families doing? Churches and books, so there's lots written on passing faith on to our kids, but no one's really telling us how. And that's what I had to figure out. I didn't know where to start. And I also didn't know how to do this. How do I teach my kids how to pray? What do I pray for them? What's a blessing and why is Esau weeping over not receiving it? How do I teach them how to hear God's voice? Because I knew what difference it made to me when I finally understood that was Him speaking. How do I teach them that? Because once they know the characteristics of His voice, they know it isn't His voice.
And probably a weight that was lifted off of your shoulder, because as I read it, it lifted a weight off of mine, is the fact that we share the onus of creating children who love God with God.
Yeah.
Free choice, and me and my faithfulness. I mean,
Right.
I can just hear the lifting, right?
Oh my
because
gosh, yeah.
so many times as parents, we put that onus on ourselves and we think
Yeah.
we're carrying it by ourselves.
Yeah, well, because we do think sometimes the onus is squarely on us to produce kids that, love Jesus, they can function well in society, but really it's a three-part equation as far as I understand it, right? The Father has promised to pursue them. They have free choice just like you and I. And then there's my faithfulness and how I live out my faith before my kids. Will they know who Jesus is?
Yeah.
Right.
But how would you speak to maybe that parent that's watching that has seen their child walk away from the Lord and feels that burden and feels like, what did I do wrong?
Right. We're pretty hard on ourselves as parents, and we're quick to see where either we've messed up or we've done things wrong. And I'm not convinced that our perspective is always accurate. It's our perspective. I'm just not sure it's always the right one. But absolutely, we do our best and we trust the Lord to kind of fill in those pieces. But what I always say is the story's not done. Right? You can't take a snapshot of anyone's life and say this is who they are, because they're constantly changing just as we are. And so, if the prayers of the righteous are powerful and effective, then the prayers of the righteous are powerful and effective. And even as my kids are now all teens, I hold on to that verse because, yes, I've equipped you, I've taught you stuff when you were little, but this is that season when they kind of pick it up for themselves. And you watch going, pick it up, pick it up, pick it up. But really, my prayer usually is, Holy Spirit, you live in them, so would you affirm them when they make the right choices, and could you convict them when they don't?
Yeah, because we're not always there. We're not always there when they make those decisions.
Yeah.
Survey the land. Make one-on-one time with each other. I love this. Every Tuesday night, you had a kids' date night.
Yeah.
You have a lot of kids.
There's a few
It's
of
a
them.
lot of date nights.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the funny part about that was our first goal, right?
Yeah.
Like my goal, it was not a lofty one, was to spend 1 hour of quality time with one child once a week.
That's a lot.
Well, no, it was just only one child. So
Oh,
it was,
okay.
it was
one
1 hour.
child
Yeah.
once a
Oh,
week.
no.
Oh,
That's what
okay.
I'm saying. It
Okay.
was not a lofty goal.
Okay.
But you know that we couldn't do it for an entire year?
Wow.
The tyranny of the urgent always took over. And it wasn't until I was looking at my calendar one day and kind of realized, we've never missed a doctor's appointment. I began to schedule it in and just said, this time is sacred. It doesn't move for anybody. And that's when we started doing it, and it started working.
How did you see it work? What started happening?
Well, because you're intentional and you're focused. I just found I was always I'd be with my kids, but I was distracted. I'm thinking about other stuff and things that need to get done. And this was that kind of like intentional one-on-one time with them where you get to know them and what they love. And it wasn't about me and what I wanted to do. It was about them, what they wanted to do. And it was painful sometimes. But that's part of loving somebody, is doing what they love to do.
And how did you see your relationship with your child change as you invested that time with them and they knew that's mommy and me time?
Yeah, well, conversations begin to happen, right? Like I remember for my second born, I just kept firing questions at him, right? I mean, he's not a huge talker, and he was good at answering questions, but I suddenly realized, oh my goodness, I have to teach you the art of conversation. I got to teach you how to date, because he wouldn't ask any questions back. So we began playing these games together. Like, I'll ask you a question, but you have to ask me a question. And we learned a ton about each other.
Wow. Build a plan, make a commitment to obey God as a family, pray through your home. I love that. And you did that, you and your husband, the first day of school, you would go through your house praying over your house.
Yeah, it's just kind of like, you do like a spring cleaning. It's just good maintenance, right?
Tell me about that. How did you see that change, and why make that commitment to do that?
I just think there's something really powerful when you declare that, this house belongs to Jesus Christ of Nazareth.
Yeah.
That all who live in here, would they experience his presence. So, as they walk in, would they feel like your love and your warmth and not know what it is? Would they be drawn to you even in our house? May our house be a beacon in our community of who you are. And just kind of inviting him into all those places.
Make a family mission statement.
Yeah.
I love that idea. Get together and decide. And it doesn't have to be complex, as you said. It can be very simple.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's a reason why businesses and corporations do that. It keeps you on task and it keeps you focused. And actually, it'll be different for each family because though our values are probably similar, the order they fall will be different. But I mean, look at the personalities in your home. They'll be different than they are in mine. And even spiritual gifts will be different, right? So just kind of finding out, what do we stand for? What are our absolutes as a family? For me, it was easier to kind of flip it over. What do I want people to say when they leave our house?
Yeah.
Because that's actually what I value.
Yeah.
Right? And we just kind of started there and building upon that.
We are running out of time, but I want to touch on what we talked about off the top, blessing your children and how important that is. And you actually created personalized blessings for your children, much like that father did.
Yeah, it's brilliant. Yeah, he did a great job. Yeah, so we started doing that. Read a great book. At that point, it was called The Power of Blessing by Melissa and Terry Bone. I think they've changed the name of it now. But it changed everything for our family because you began to understand the significance and the power of words, right? The word was spoken into being, so words do hold creative power, right? So a blessing really speaks into a person's identity and their purpose or their destiny. And there's so many messages that our kids receive from the world about who they are and where they're meant to go in life. And yet we actually know as their parents and as believers that God has much bigger plans. Right? And so being able to speak those things out over them about who they are, it's powerful. Because once they know who they are, when somebody says something different, they're like, that's not true.
That's true. Right? Thank you so much, Leanne.
Thank you.
The book is called A Parent's Best Gift, a practical guide to passing faith on to our kids. Such an important book. Thank you again.
Thank you.
And I hope this resonates with you. Maybe you're at home and you're a parent just struggling to have devotions. I know sometimes that's what the scenario is in the John family household, but just speaking even a blessing over your children, letting them know that they are loved, that they are called by God, that they are children of the Most High is so important. And so I hope that that encourages you today. And, if you're going through a challenging time, I would encourage you to call our prayer lines, the numbers at the bottom of your screen. There's always someone there ready, willing, and able to pray with you.